I found out I was the villain in my own sister's story on a Tuesday night that was supposed to be ordinary. I was lying on the couch in my small apartment, still in my scrubs, shoes kicked under the coffee table, the quiet hum of the fridge in the background. My body ached from a 12-hour shift in pediatrics, and all I wanted was to turn my brain off. So I did what everyone does. I opened TikTok and started scrolling. I barely looked at the first few videos. Dances. Recipes. A couple arguing about who forgot the groceries. My thumb moved automatically, as if the screen were breathing under my fingers. Then a video popped up with a girl in soft studio lighting, mascara smeared, eyes glossy, holding back tears in that very particular way that still looks good on camera. The title on the screen said, "How My Sister Destroyed My Life, and Why I Forgave Her Anyway." I almost swiped away. Another story time, I thought, my eyes tired. But something in her jawline snagged my attention. She turned her face just a little to the side, and I saw it. A tiny dimple on the left cheek. My brain took half a second to register what my heart just sabía. It was my sister. Chloe. She took a shaky breath and said, "This is really hard for me to talk about, but I grew up with a sister who controlled everything I did. What I wore. Who I dated. What I could dream of. And she used God as the reason for it." My thumb froze on the screen. The comments were flying so fast I could barely read them, but the ones I caught burned into my chest. "Your sister is a monster. Girl, run from that toxic family. You're so brave for sharing this." I'm sobbing. Someone had written, "What kind of Christian does that?" And there were thousands of likes under it. I watched her crying on my phone, and at the bottom of the screen, the view count climbed past 1 million. I sat there, numb, with the cold light of the phone washing over my face, and I had the clearest thought I'd had all day: I just lost my sister to the internet. What I didn't know yet was that God was going to use that same little screen, that same device that had just become a weapon against me, to write the strangest, quietest miracle I'd ever live. My name is Emily Parker. I'm 32 years old. I work as a pediatric nurse in a small hospital in Pennsylvania. I'm the one who holds down screaming toddlers for blood draws, the one who sings off-key Disney songs at 3 a.m. for kids who can't sleep, the one who brings extra snacks for the parents who forgot to eat. That's my world. My sister, Chloe, lives in a completely different world. She's 25. Colored hair that changes with the algorithm. Ring light. Multiple accounts. Brand deals. A manager. Long-term partnerships. She's a full-time content creator. When we were kids, people used to joke that we were the before and after of a makeover show. I was the quiet one with the messy ponytail and books stacked by my bed. She was glitter, loud laughter, choreographed dances in the living room. In family photos, I'm the one with the polite smile, and she's usually mid-laugh or mid-eye roll. Our parents had this way of introducing us that felt like a script. This is Emily, our responsible one. Straight A student. Wants to save the world one patient at a time. And this is Chloe, our dreamer. Our star. We never know what she'll do next. Everyone would laugh. I laughed too. What I didn't understand then was how heavy those two little labels, responsible and dreamer, would become on our shoulders, like costumes we were not allowed to take off. My earliest memories of church are tied to my sister too. We grew up in a small white church on a hill, with a creaky piano and a parking lot that turned into a skating rink every winter. I was the kid who actually liked Sunday school, coloring Noah's Ark and memorizing verses for candy. Chloe would fidget in her seat, tug on my braid, whisper that she wanted to go back home and play dress up. But even when she complained, she slept better on the nights we went to church. On those nights, she would sneak into my bed, drag her blanket up to her chin and whisper, "Tell me a God story, Em." I would make up some half-remembered parable about lost sheep or storms calming down, and she would fall asleep before I even got to the "Jesus did a miracle" part. She just liked knowing that in the end, someone came back home. Someone was found. Back then, I really believed that's who we'd always be, two sisters sharing a tiny bed on nights when the dark felt too loud. Turns out, the dark can get louder than you think. When smartphones and social media really took off, I barely noticed at first. I was buried in nursing school, clinical rotations, exams that felt like they were written in another language. I used my phone to set alarms and check the weather. Chloe used hers to build a universe. It started small. Little videos in her bedroom, lip-syncing to songs, trying makeup looks she found online, laughing when our mom yelled from the hallway to turn the music down. Then she edited her first vlog. Then another. Then she learned transitions and filters and how to talk to a camera like it was a best friend. One Thanksgiving, she sat at the table with a tripod set up next to the mashed potatoes, filming "weird things my family says during dinner." She'd cut away right before anyone mentioned anything real, then overlay it with a funny sound and a caption. I remember feeling awkward, not because of the filming exactly, but because every joke felt slightly rehearsed. When she hit 100,000 followers, my parents were ecstatic. My dad brought home a store-bought cake with "Congrats, Chloe," piped in blue frosting. He insisted we take a photo for her fans. "This is huge," he said, arm around her. "Do you know how hard it is to get this many people to care about what you're doing? Emily saves lives every day, but you," he pointed at Chloe with pride, "you get to reach thousands of lives at the same time. You both change the world, just in different ways." Everyone laughed. The picture was posted. Likes flooded in. And somewhere between the cake and my dad's joke, something inside me shifted. It wasn't jealousy. It was like watching someone take a picture frame that had our whole family in it and slowly crop people out until only one person remained, perfectly centered. I thought the first story time about me was harmless. The title was something like, "My overprotective sister almost ruined my first love." It popped up on my feed because, of course, I followed my own sister. I tapped it with curiosity, rolled my eyes, and prepared to cringe at her dramatization. She told a story about being 17, dating a boy who rode a motorcycle and smelled like cheap cologne. That part was true. She talked about crying in our shared bathroom because I had come in with my serious voice and my medical knowledge of statistics about accidents and lecture about self-worth. Also true. But on the video, she exaggerated my tone, made my voice higher and shriller, said I had threatened to tell our parents everything and manipulated her using fear and guilt. At the end, she smiled and said, "She means well, though. Big sisters are guardian angels in disguise sometimes." People laughed. They commented things like, "Classic big sis energy," and "I needed an Emily in my life." For a few days, I floated on that. It felt sweet. I was part of her story, and in that story, I was annoying but ultimately loving. I could live with that. I didn't see the line until we had long crossed it. As her follower count grew, her content changed. Makeup tutorials and dance challenges became filler. What really hit were the story times. The more dramatic and unfair the situation, the higher the numbers climbed. Clips with titles like, "My Parents Betrayed Me," and "The Guy Who Made Me Believe in Love and Then Ghosted Me" would hit millions overnight. It didn't take long for my role to be upgraded. Chloe never said, "I'm going to turn you into the villain," but that's what happened. She started testing phrases like, "my religious sister," and "my super holy sister." At first, it was wrapped in humor. "You know that holy sister that thinks the Wi-Fi is possessed?" she'd joke. The comments loved it. People tagged their siblings. Laugh cry emojis everywhere. I have never thought Wi-Fi was possessed, just for the record. The first time she really crossed the line, she posted a video titled, "How My Sister Almost Destroyed My Career." The thumbnail was her with mascara streaks, hand over her mouth, text saying, "She said God was ashamed of me." I remember the conversation she was referring to. We had sat at the kitchen table. She was talking about posting a collab where she'd be in lingerie under a blazer, doing a flirty clap back to a troll. I had tried to tell her, as gently as I knew how, that the internet never forgets and that she was more than her body, more than shock value. "Just be careful, Chloe," I had said. "Once it's out there, it's out there. You don't have to prove your worth with skin." She had rolled her eyes, grabbed her phone, and left the table. In her version, on millions of screens, I became the sister who told her she was disgusting, that she was embarrassing our family and embarrassing God. She imitated my voice, lower, harsh, finally finding the villain tone her audience would recognize. I watched the video alone in my apartment, my soup getting cold in my lap. At first, my brain tried to justify her. Maybe she doesn't realize how different it sounds, I thought. She's just telling her side. Then I opened the comments. "Your sister is emotionally abusive. She's jealous you have the freedom she never had. I grew up with a religious sister like that. I cut her off and never looked back. Best decision of my life." One comment had my hospital identified in it, even though she'd never said my full name. Someone had put together Emily, pediatric nurse, and the city tagged on her posts, and now my workplace was being pulled into it. That night, for the first time, I felt something I had never felt toward Chloe before. I felt afraid of her. I tried to talk to her. I called. She declined. I texted her, "Can we please talk about your last video?" She left it on read. Later, on her Instagram stories, she posted a screenshot of our conversation with my name blurred out and wrote over it, "When you call out abusive behavior and suddenly you're the problem." A sticker on the story said, "If they wanted you to tell a different story, they should have treated you better." I stared at that sentence so long my eyes hurt. Somewhere between her content calendar and her brand deals, I had turned into content. Real life, of course, kept going. Kids still needed shots and IVs. Parents still needed someone to explain lab results in human language. But my phone had become a ticking bomb in my pocket. At work, the first time someone joked about it, I laughed too. Sarah, one of the other nurses, was scrolling on her break and said, "Oh my gosh, this girl's sister sounds exactly like you when you go off about hand-washing protocols." Everyone laughed. I pretended it was funny. But after that, every time I gave a firm instruction or corrected someone, I could feel their eyes on me, measuring me against some invisible, toxic sister template. I told myself I was being paranoid. But paranoia feels a lot like having receipts. The breaking point at the hospital came on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after the "God is ashamed of you" video. They called me into the office. The supervisor's chair looked too big for her behind that desk. "Emily," she began slowly, "this is awkward. We've gotten some emails and DMs about a series of videos online, and your name has been mentioned." I swallowed. "My sister makes content," I said. "She dramatizes a lot." "I understand." She folded her hands. "And to be clear, no one here thinks you're some kind of monster. You're an excellent nurse. But in this climate, with patient families Googling staff, we just need you to be aware. Maybe lay low online. Make your accounts private for a while." I nodded, cheeks hot. It wasn't my fault, but I suddenly felt like I was wearing a scarlet letter I hadn't chosen. That night, I went home, kicked off my shoes at the door, and went straight to my bedroom. I dropped my phone in the nightstand drawer and shut it with more force than necessary. The room felt quiet, thick. For a few minutes, it was a relief not to have my phone in my hand. Then the questions came. What's she posting right now? What are they saying about me? Did another video go viral? Did someone find my Facebook? Did someone send an email to the hospital board? My chest tightened. The same device that had once held my Bible app, photos of newborns I'd helped deliver, silly cat videos some of my patients sent me, now felt like a door anyone could walk through to yell at me. I slid down to the floor, my back against the nightstand, knees pulled to my chest. Uninvited, a memory surfaced, me at 16, kneeling at the front of our church during some youth conference, asking God to use my life however you want. Use my life, I had prayed back then, full of teenage fire. Let my story show who you are. What about now? I whispered into the dim room. Is this what that prayer meant? My story in someone else's hands. I didn't hear anything back. Just the hum of the heater and a neighbor's TV floating through the wall. Days turned into a fog. I deactivated my social accounts. I stopped responding to group chats. I went to work, came home, watched mindless TV, slept badly. Church became a question mark. Every time I thought about walking back into the building where my sister's face sometimes appeared on the youth group screen as a cool Christian influencer guest, my stomach churned. People kept sending me verses. God is your defender. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. They meant well. But after a while, the words felt like inspirational quotes on the wall of a gym I didn't have strength to get to. Then came the cell phone video. Not another one from her account. A different kind. 2 months after the first viral blow-up, I finally dragged myself back to church. I went to a Sunday night service, hoping it would be emptier. I sat in the back, behind a pillar, and tried not to be seen. The worship leader sang about God turning graves into gardens. I didn't sing. I just stared at the exit sign. When the service ended, I made a beeline for the door. I almost made it. Almost. Emily, a voice called. I turned. It was Josh, the guy who ran sound and cameras, the one who was always half hidden behind the tech booth. He walked toward me, clutching his phone like it was hot. Hey, he said, a little out of breath. Sorry, I know this is weird. Can I talk to you for a second? If he was about to ask for a selfie with Chloe's sister, I was ready to evaporate on the spot. If it's about a video, I began. It's not one of her posts, he cut in quickly. It's raw footage. From a shared server. It got leaked in an editor's Discord I'm in, and I recognized you. I didn't know if I should show you. I asked Pastor and he said, it's your call. He held out his phone. My heart hammered in my ears. On the screen, Chloe sat in a professional studio, ring light haloing her hair. A man off camera said, okay, let's go again. Remember, you're the misunderstood victim, your sister is super controlling and religious. Let's lean into that. Let the tears build. Chloe laughed. Not her nervous laugh, but the carefree one she had when we were kids and built blanket forts in the living room. But my sister isn't even that bad, you know that, right? She said, wiping her already perfectly placed tears. Of course not, the man replied. But controlling Christian sister tests really well. People eat that up. Worried sister is boring. Do you want 1 million views on this or not? She looked down, lips pressed together. Then she lifted her head, and her whole face changed. The laugh disappeared as if someone had wiped it off with a cloth. Her eyes glistened just so, her lip trembled with precision. My sister has judged me my whole life, she began, voice shaking on cue. The man interrupted gently. Pause there. Hold the breath. Good. Now say she used God as a weapon. That's your hook. Used God as a weapon, she repeated mechanically. Got it. I watched the rest in silence. Cues. Retakes. Directions. Suggestions to throw in something about grace at the end so the video wouldn't sound like pure bitterness. When it finished, Josh took the phone back, awkward. "I know this doesn't fix anything," he said, eyes darting to the floor. "But, you're not crazy. You're not imagining it. She really did tilt things. A lot." I sat down on a wooden pew like someone had pushed me. The church felt suddenly too bright and too quiet at the same time. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part wanted to laugh. A third part just wanted to go back 10 years and make us both social media proof. "Thank you," I said finally. My voice sounded far away. "I don't know what to do with this yet, but thank you." On the drive home, my brain ran movies of possible futures. I could release the footage. I could post my own story time, the truth about my influencer sister. I could email every brand that had ever worked with her. I could become my own PR team. That night, sleep didn't come. I lay flat on my back, staring at the ceiling, the phone screen burning a rectangle of light on my nightstand. At 3 in the morning, I got up, took the phone, and sat at my small kitchen table. I opened a blank note and started typing out a video script of my own. "My sister lied about me for views," I wrote. "Here's the truth." The words poured out. The childhood memories. The misquotes. The out-of-context events. The raw footage. I imagined my face on camera, my eyes red, my voice low and steady. I imagined comments defending me. I knew something was off with Chloe's stories. Team Emily forever. People love switching sides when a plot twist hits. I wrote paragraphs. Deleted them. Wrote again. Rephrased. Softened. Sharpened. Then I scrolled back up to the top of the note and saw the title glaring at me. "My sister lied about me for views." 4 views. My stomach turned. I closed my eyes and saw Chloe at 4 years old, clutching her stuffed rabbit, asking me to tell her a God story, because she didn't like the noises the dark made. I saw her at 12, stage fright frozen at the school talent show until I squeezed her hand and told her backstage, "You've got this. I'll be right here." I saw her at 19, collapsed on our kitchen floor after her first real breakup, sobbing into my lap while I stroked her hair in circles and whispered prayers I wasn't even sure I believed for myself but desperately hoped were true for her. Was I really about to turn her into content because she had turned me into content? I thought of all the times in church we'd heard the word testimony. It was always shiny, like a polished stone people held up to show what God had done. Now I realized a testimony can also be a weapon. A story can be told to heal. It can also be told to win. I deleted the title. Deleted the paragraphs. Closed the Notes app. Instead, I searched my messages for a contact Sarah had given me months ago and I'd never used, Miller, attorney. "Hi," I typed. "My name is Emily Parker. My sister is an influencer who has been posting videos that misrepresent and damage me. I have recording evidence that some of her claims were staged. I'd like to know my legal options." This time, I didn't delete it. I hit send. At our first meeting, Ms. Miller didn't look like the movie version of a lawyer. She had tired eyes, a coffee stain on her blouse, and a warm, no-nonsense way of speaking. "Here's the deal," she said after I told her everything and showed her the leaked footage. "You have a case. Defamation is hard to prove online sometimes, but this is about as clear as it gets. There's intentional misrepresentation, financial gain, repeated harm. We could sue for damages. You could get a settlement, maybe a public apology, maybe some of the profits from those videos. But I need to ask you something before we go any further." She leaned forward. "What do you actually want, Emily? Not just justice. What do you want your life to look like 6 months from now? Quiet, I answered without thinking. The word slipped out like it had been waiting for permission. Quiet, she repeated. Okay. Quiet how? Quiet with your sister in financial ruin. Quiet with an NDA and a check. Quiet with her forced off social media. I stared at my hands. I want to walk into my job and not wonder who watched a video about me that morning, I said slowly. I want to go to church and not feel like a character in somebody's sermon illustration. I want to stop being a prop in my sister's content. I want my name back. And I don't want to hate her. I don't want to become the thing she painted me as. Mess. Miller nodded thoughtfully. Then we may be looking more at mediation plus a structured agreement than a bloodbath, she said. I'll be blunt, if you want revenge, a public trial could give you that. But it will also give your sister more content. It will keep the story alive. If you want actual peace, we aim for something quieter. It'll still be hard. And you may feel like you're letting her off easy. People around you might say that. You'll have to decide which voice matters more. I walked out of that office with a folder in my hand and a war in my chest. On one side, she deserves to pay. On the other, you prayed for God's justice, not your spectacle. The leak spread faster than we thought. Even without my involvement, the raw footage made its way to commentary channels, gossip accounts, people who make a living reacting to other people's lives. Did she fake it? The captions asked. Is this all an act? People slowed down the footage, zoomed in on Chloe's face, analyzed the way she switched from laughing to crying. Armchair psychologists diagnosed her from 30-second clips. The same audience that had loved her as a victim now circled like sharks smelling blood in the water. For a brief, ugly moment, I felt vindicated. Then I watched one reaction where a girl, barely 20, said, "This is why you can't trust anyone who talks about God online. It's all fake. They're all fake." And just like that, the knife twisted the other way. Chloe called an emergency family meeting after that. "Please come," my dad had said on the phone. "I know you're mad. Just come." I almost didn't. But something about his voice, the crack in it, made me say yes. At my parents' house, the tension hit me as soon as I stepped inside. The air felt thick, like the air before a storm. My mom sat at the dining table, clutching a tissue. My dad stood by the window, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Chloe was at the opposite end of the table, hood up, no makeup, a person I recognized and didn't recognize at the same time. On the table lay a phone, screen frozen on the leaked footage. My parents had seen it all now. No more gray areas, no more, maybe she exaggerated a little. "Sit, Em," my dad said softly. I sat at the far side, the phone between us like a piece of evidence in a crime drama. "I didn't post this," I said immediately. "I swear. I showed it to one person, well, technically Pastor knows too, but I didn't leak it." "We believe you," my mom said quickly. "We do." Her eyes flicked to Chloe. "We just didn't know it was like this." Chloe stared at the table. "You filmed all that for them?" my dad asked, gesturing vaguely, meaning the internet, the faceless millions. "You let them turn your life into this?" "No one turned anything," she muttered. "I did. I know that." For the first time in months, she looked me in the eye. "I'm sorry it blew back on you," she said, the words stiff. "That wasn't the plan." "What was the plan, then?" I asked. My voice shook more than I wanted. "Was there a version where you stopped before I lost my job? Before strangers sent emails about me? Before our church started whispering?" She flinched. "I was going to dial it back," she said quietly. "Just not yet. Once I stabilized my numbers. Once I didn't need the drama as much. I thought, She swallowed. I thought I had time. The irony that she had learned to talk about me like I was a character and now she was talking about her life like it was an analytics dashboard was not lost on me. My dad rubbed his forehead. We've always been proud of both of you, he said slowly. But I'll be honest. I don't even know what I'm proud of anymore. I don't understand this world. I thought content was harmless. I thought exaggeration was just part of the game. I didn't realize people were getting hurt for real. I did, I said, more sharply than I intended. Silence fell, heavy. Somewhere in the house, the fridge kicked on. A car drove by outside. My mom finally spoke. I prayed for God to show us the truth, she whispered. It's uglier than I wanted. But here it is. That night, after everyone exhausted their apologies and defenses and tears, we ended up in exactly the place Ms. Miller had predicted, considering mediation. Which is how, weeks later, I found myself sitting at a long table in a bland office conference room, with a mediator at the head, lawyers flanking us, and a stack of paper cups by the water cooler that no one bothered to use. Phones sat face down in front of us like a row of sleeping snakes. The mediator, a middle-aged man with calm eyes, explained the process in a soft voice. This isn't a trial, he said. No one goes to jail. No one is declared good or evil. The goal here is understanding and agreement. My job is to guide the conversation so you can decide what happens next. He turned to me. Emily, can you tell us, in your own words, what you're hoping for from today? I took a deep breath. My throat felt tight, but I made myself speak slowly. I want my life back, I said. I want my name separated from a story that isn't true. I want my sister to stop using me as content. I want to go to work without wondering what people saw on their phones. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life feeling like I'm waiting for the next episode of a show I didn't agree to be in. My voice cracked on that last sentence, and I bit the inside of my cheek to stop myself from crying. The mediator nodded, jotted something on his pad, then turned to Chloe. And you, Chloe? What do you hope for? She looked tired. Not influencer tired, the kind you put concealer on and joke about. A different kind. I don't want to lose my whole life's work, she said quietly. This is how I pay rent. How I help mom and dad. I know I messed up. I know I pushed it too far. But I don't want to be seen as a complete fraud forever. And I don't want to lose my sister. The mediator listened, then looked between us, then at the lawyers. We also have evidence, he said carefully, that some of your content was staged in ways that directly harmed Emily's reputation. We'll get to that. But I want to say something as a human being, not just a mediator. He paused. You two are not just co-workers or business partners. You're family. And this, he tapped the folder in front of him, is a mess. But I've seen bigger messes turn into something surprisingly good when people are willing to tell the truth and hear the truth. Are you both willing to do that today? I nodded. Chloe did too, after a second. They played the raw footage on a TV mounted on the wall. I watched myself become a villain in real time, scene by scene, from angles I'd never seen, the director feeding her lines about me, telling her when to cry, when to mention God for maximum engagement. At one point, he even said, let's make your sister sound more controlling here. Stories need a clear antagonist. My name came out of her mouth like a prop. When the video ended, the room felt heavier than before. The mediator looked at Chloe. Do you acknowledge this is real footage of you? He asked. Yes, she whispered. And do you acknowledge that you presented this content as candid, unedited truth to your audience? Yes. Do you acknowledge that your portrayal of your sister in these videos significantly exaggerated or altered reality and contributed to real harm to her reputation and emotional well-being? She swallowed hard. Yes, she said, voice breaking. He turned to me. Emily, you have more than enough here to pursue a defamation suit. Your lawyer has explained your options. You could seek financial compensation, a court order, public statements, a number of things. What are you requesting in this mediation? All the speeches I'd rehearsed in my head seemed to vanish. What came out instead was stripped down and painfully simple. I want the videos down, I said. Every video where I'm cast as a villain, where my name and my faith are used as weapons. I want a public apology, not a brand collab, not sponsored, no cute music. Just the truth. I want her to say she exaggerated and that I'm not what she told people I am. And I want her to get help. Real help. Therapy, counseling, whatever it takes to unpack why she needed to create a villain in the first place. My lawyer cleared her throat, almost like she wanted to remind me about money. And, she prompted gently. And that's it, I said. Chloe's head snapped up. No money? She asked, genuinely stunned. Are you serious? My lawyer murmured under her breath. I thought of all the nights I'd lain awake, fantasies of her losing sponsors circling my brain like moths around a porch light. I thought about the brief, ugly satisfaction of imagining her brand crumbling. And I thought about the girl who used to sneak into my room when it thundered, asking if God got louder when he was mad. I won't pretend I haven't wanted to hurt you back, I told her. I have. I wanted you to feel humiliated like I did. Small like I did. But if I make this about money, about how much I can get out of you, it just becomes another season in your content universe. My sister sues me, how I overcame betrayal, whatever. I don't want to be material for your redemption arc. I want this to stop. I looked down at my own hands. I don't want to carry this weight for the rest of my life. I asked God to defend me, not to give me a bigger platform for my side of the story. So, no. I don't want your money. For the first time that day, my dad, sitting in the corner as an observer, wiped his eyes. My mother stared at me like seeing a stranger and her daughter at the same time. The mediator wrote, "No financial compensation requested," in big letters. This is unusual, he said softly. But not unheard of. We can absolutely draft an agreement with these terms. The details took hours. Lawyers went back and forth, wording every clause. Timeline for video removal. Language for the apology. Obligation for Chloe to attend counseling for a minimum period. A non-disparagement clause that bound us both to stop talking about each other publicly. At one point, while Ms. Miller and Chloe's attorney argued over the word sincere in the apology section, I tuned them out and stared at the row of phones on the table. Each of us had a little screen that had, in some way, hijacked our lives. It struck me then that none of us had meant for it to go this far. We had simply let the algorithm decide how much of our real lives were worth sacrificing for attention. By the time we signed the preliminary agreement and walked out into the parking lot, the sky was turning orange and purple. Chloe stood a few feet away from me, rubbing her arms against the chill. "Do you really think God cares about this?" she asked suddenly, without looking at me. "Like, this level of drama. This, petty stuff." I thought of a God who wept at a friend's grave even though he knew he would raise him. A God who cared about social outcasts touching his clothes. A God who let himself be misrepresented in front of crowds and still chose love. "I think he cares about people," I said quietly. "And this is killing us, so, yeah. I think he cares." She nodded, her throat bobbing as she swallowed. "Okay," she said. "Then I'll try to care too." The video, the apology, went live 2 weeks later. I knew the exact time she scheduled it. She texted me, "Posting it now." I stared at my phone for a long minute before tapping the notification. There she was, on my screen again. But this time, the frame was different. No studio lights, just a lamp in the corner of what looked like her bedroom. No glam makeup, just blotchy skin and swollen eyelids. No dramatic background music. She looked at the camera, took a breath, and said, "I owe you the truth." She spoke slowly. She admitted to exaggerating, to staging, to editing reality into a cleaner story where she was always more wounded and I was always more cruel. She said my name. My full name. She said, "Emily is not who I told you she was. She's not abusive. She's not the monster in my story. I made choices to twist things to my advantage, and it hurt her. It hurt my family. It hurt some of you too." At one point, she held her phone up slightly, like she was offering it. "This little thing has become my God," she said. "I talked about the real God a lot in my videos, but the one I actually worshipped was this. The screen. The numbers. The next viral moment. I used faith as a prop. I used my sister as a prop. I'm done doing that." She didn't crack a joke. She didn't add a trendy sound. She didn't edit out the parts where she had to stop and blow her nose. She ended with, "Emily, if you're watching this, I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm asking for it anyway. Not as content. As your little sister." I watched the whole thing without moving. The view count started climbing. The comments section filled faster than I could scroll. Some people praised her for owning up. Some said it was too little, too late. Some attacked her. Some attacked me, preemptively defending her from what they imagined I'd do next. I put the phone down. Turned it face down this time. For 2 days, I didn't answer Chloe's texts. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just needed silence to figure out what my heart was actually saying under all the noise. On the 3rd day, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw her, hoodie up, backpack on, standing with that slightly hunched posture she gets when she feels small. I opened the door. "I'm not recording," she blurted before I could say anything. She held up her phone, screen toward me. "You can check." No camera. Airplane mode. Sure enough, the little airplane icon glowed in the top corner. Some part of me relaxed at that tiny symbol. "Okay," I said. "Come in." She stepped inside like she was entering someone else's home. Her eyes took in the mismatched couch, the stack of textbooks on my coffee table, the plant on the windowsill I was somehow managing not to kill. We ended up at the kitchen table again. The same table where I'd once lectured her about a collab, where I'd almost written my own revenge script. The phone lay between us, this time, in airplane mode from the start. "Thank you for not suing me," she said after a long silence. "I deserved it." "You deserve to face what you did," I said. "You're still facing it. The leak, the comments, the cancellations. I didn't let you off." "I know." She sniffed, wiping her nose on her sleeve. "I just keep thinking about how I would have handled this if it were you. If I were in your shoes. I would have gone scorched earth. I would have made a 3-part series with receipts and reaction videos. I don't recognize the way you've handled this. It's not normal. It's not me," I said honestly. "At least not the me who lies awake at 3 in the morning imagining you losing everything. It's... I don't know. It's those verses Mom used to read. That stuff stuck more than I thought." She looked at me then, eyes shining with a completely different kind of tears. "I think that's what scares me about God," she said slowly. "He sees everything. The stuff I edit out. The stuff I pretend I don't feel. And he still stays. I don't get that." "I don't either, most days," I admitted. "But I'm tired of living like my identity is whatever the algorithm thinks is interesting. I'm tired of letting your narrative define me. If God says I'm more than that, then, that's the story I want to live in. Even when it costs me. We sat there in silence for a while. The clock ticked. A car horn honked outside. Somewhere down the hall, my neighbor's sink turned on. "Do you forgive me?" she asked finally, her voice small. The question hung between us like a fragile thing. "I forgive you," I said, and as I said it, I felt something loosen in my chest that had been tightened so long I'd forgotten what air felt like. "That doesn't mean I forget," I added. "It doesn't mean I trust you with everything again right away. But I'm not going to hold this over your head for the rest of our lives. I'm not going to rehearse the hurt every day. I'm not going to make you pay again and again. That's what I mean by forgive." She nodded, tears spilling over. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." We stood up awkwardly. I'm taller than her by 2 inches, but it didn't feel that way when she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around my waist. I hesitated, then hugged her back. At first, it was stiff, like hugging a stranger who smells like your childhood. Then, bit by bit, my shoulders relaxed. Her head fit under my chin the way it always used to. Her hair smelled like the same vanilla shampoo she'd stolen from me since we were kids. "I missed you," she said into my shirt. "I missed you too," I answered. It wasn't cinematic. No swelling music, no perfectly timed lighting. Just 2 sisters in a cramped kitchen, holding onto each other like trying not to fall. But it was real. In the months that followed, Chloe's life changed in slower, less visible ways than the overnight virality she was used to. Her follower count dipped. A couple of brands quietly pivoted to other creators. Her comments went from "Queen" and "You saved my life" to "I don't know if I can trust you" and "This feels performative." She didn't run from it. She posted less often. When she did, the videos were rougher, less edited. She talked about therapy, not as a quirky accessory, but as something that made her confront ugly parts of herself. She made a video about the difference between telling your story and dragging people through your pain without their consent. She lost more followers after that. She kept going. We made rules for seeing each other. No phones at family dinner. If she wanted to talk about me online, she asked permission first, and most of the time, I said no. She actually listened. Sometimes she slipped. She started to film in my parents' living room during Thanksgiving and froze when she saw my face. She put the phone down. Later, she texted me, "Old habits die hard." I answered, "New ones can be born." Our parents were still figuring it out too. My mom joined a support group for parents of adult children in public careers. My dad stopped reading the comments under Chloe's posts, his blood pressure couldn't handle it. One Sunday after church, my pastor walked up to me and said, "You know, when you disappeared, I thought you had given up on community. Now I see you needed time to decide what kind of story you wanted to live. I'm glad you're still here." I looked around the sanctuary. It still had the same stained glass, the same slightly off-key piano, the same carpet that needed replacing. The difference wasn't the building. It was me realizing that God wasn't taking his cues from viral videos about me. I wasn't on trial in his eyes. About 6 months after the mediation, Chloe asked me to coffee. "I want to start a new series," she said cautiously. "Not story times. Conversations. About what responsible storytelling looks like. About repentance, not just apologies people perform online. About how to have boundaries with your own audience. I don't want it to be the Emily redemption arc. I want it to be bigger than us. But I also know I can't pretend you're not part of this." I stirred my latte. "You want me to be in the first episode," I guessed. She winced. "Yeah. But if you say no, I'll still do the series. I'll just talk about it from my side and bring in other people who've been through stuff like this. I thought about it for a long moment. I'll say yes if we make another rule, I said. Her eyebrows rose. Another one? After we stop recording, we keep talking, I said. No cameras. No mics. No hidden B-roll. Everything we say off camera is for us. Not for content later. Not for part 2. Just for two sisters trying to figure out how to be sisters again. She smiled. Not the bright, polished smile she gave Brands, but the crooked one from before she cared what she looked like on camera. Deal, she said. We filmed at her apartment, on her slightly crooked couch, the ring light to the side, not even centered. She introduced me to her audience by my first name only, no dramatic titles. We talked about the early videos, about the harm, about the mediation, about faith that had nearly snapped and somehow stretched instead. We didn't name every detail. We didn't drag old wounds into the light for the sake of intrigue. We talked about principles more than specifics, consent, dignity, how every character in your story is a whole person in theirs. The video did well. Not viral hit, everyone's talking about it, well. But stable, steady, this mattered to the people who needed it, well. Scrolling through the comments later, in my own apartment, I saw, I've been the Chloe in someone else's story. This made me text my sister and apologize. Another, I realized I share too much about my husband online. Going to rethink that. And another, as someone who was turned into the villain in my sister's story, this hit hard. Thank you for showing a different ending. I set my phone down, leaned back, and closed my eyes. Somewhere in the middle of all this, without fanfare, my relationship with my phone had changed again. It had been a tool for connection, then a weapon, then an idol, then a courtroom. Now, slowly, it was becoming just an object again. Maybe what it always should have been. That night, as I washed dishes, my phone buzzed on the counter. I dried my hands and glanced at the screen. It was Chloe. How are you really? Her message read. I know you said yes to the video, but I don't want to assume that means you're 100% okay. Can we talk later? No cameras. Just us and maybe some ice cream. I smiled. Tapped out, yeah. I'd like that. As I set the phone back down, another memory flickered at the edges of my mind. Me at 16, kneeling at the front of that creaky little church, telling God he could use my life however he wanted. Maybe I had imagined that would look like mission trips, or dramatic rescues, or some kind of shining, obvious miracle. Instead, it looked like this: two sisters sitting on a couch with melting ice cream, talking honestly about sin and mercy and boundaries and second chances, while the rest of the world scrolled past, never knowing the quiet work being done in a little apartment in Pennsylvania. It looked like me learning to believe, deep down, that no video, no narrative crafted by someone else, has the final word on who I am. Only the one who wrote my story in the first place gets that. If someone ever turns your life into content, remember, they cannot steal your story from the hands of the one who saw you before any camera did. They can wound you. They can misrepresent you. They can turn you into a villain to earn a living. But they cannot rewrite who you are in God's eyes. He can take even the cold glow of a phone screen, the same light that once exposed your deepest humiliation, and use it to light the way back home, to the warm, fragile, beautiful miracle of being found again.